I'm Nick Seco from HomeRite Windows and Doors, and we're located in Waynesboro, Pennsylvania. So we do vinyl replacement windows, we do steel and fiberglass entry doors, we do aluminum storm doors, and we do sliding patio doors, all made by Provia. The windows are a vinyl replacement window, and it could be anything from double hungs to casements to bay and bow windows and everything in between. So when somebody calls in the office and needs an estimate, they get Roxanne on the phone typically, and she would schedule an appointment for me to come out and take some measurements, provide some literature, go through what options we have, and then I would follow up within about 24 to 48 hours with an estimate with all the details of the products as well as the installed price. I find that we're typically much more affordable than the companies that you see advertising on TV or in a lot of other places. If they're spending a lot of advertising dollars, obviously they're passing those costs on to their consumers. You could go to our website at homeritewaynesboro.com, or you could call us at 717-749-4874.
Local and live, covering Franklin and Washington counties, it's Let's Talk TriState with Tiny and Katie.
Welcome to Let's Talk TriState, all powered by HomeRite Windows and Doors in Waynesboro, the right choice winner in the 2024 Best of the TriState Awards. Our segment now is Ask the Expert, and boy, do we have an expert for you today. From Meritus Health, would you please welcome plastic surgeon Dr. Eric Maiorino. Doctor,
hi.
Pleasure to see you.
Nice meeting you.
Likewise. So, before we break into your specialties, plastic surgery covers a very broad scope, as you and I have touched on a little bit off air. Take us through your history. Like all of our guests, especially our experts, how did you, where'd you grow up?
Sure.
How'd you get into, what led you to where you are today?
Sure. So I grew up in Ozone Park, New York, which is a small town in Queens, even though that's not a really small town.
Right.
New York City's not a small town.
No.
I grew up to a father who did construction and a mom who's a flight attendant. So medicine was not on our radar. First in my entire family to go to college. I always kind of wanted to be a doctor though.
Right.
Experience with an uncle who had cardiac bypass when I was a young kid, and watched my aunt struggle to take care of him. It just fascinated me.
Yeah.
So went through high school and college, and halfway through college decided, you know what, maybe I'm not smart enough to go to medical school. And I ended up doing a program called Teach for America. I was a high school science teacher, taught ninth grade science for 2 years in Newark, New Jersey, and it's the hardest thing I've ever done.
Really?
I give all of the credit to teachers,
Yeah.
people who can do it well. It's very challenging.
Oh, it is.
But there was always that bug, that nag, that you know what, I still want to do medicine. So I got accepted to Temple University for medical school in Philadelphia. I did my 4 years there, and then I decided to do general surgery for 5 years, which was amazing. I got to do some amazing stuff. But what drew me to plastics was the breadth of the surgeries that I was allowed to do. I was operating in all different parts of the body, working with all different types of surgeons. I got to do an experience in Taiwan for 6 weeks where they were doing all kinds of crazy toe-to-hand transplants, some crazy reconstructions after cancer. And I was like, you know what, this is what I want to do.
Okay.
So I did my training at the University of Texas in Houston for 3 years, and then was in private practice for a little bit before that. And then here I am at Meritus, excited to be part of the new medical school. Excited to be doing some of the breast reconstruction there.
Yeah. Now, I just want to back up for just a moment because I almost interrupted you because this is a question that I seemingly always forget to ask. And I always like to tell my guests as well that some of the questions that I may ask will seem very obvious.
Sure.
But I feel that it's my job as the person facilitating the interview, especially on Ask the Expert segments, that I ask those questions that may seem obvious. But for this one, when you say general surgeon, I've heard that terminology. I'm sure some of our viewers and listeners have as well. What is we know what general means, but take us through the general surgeon component. What is that? Just the common surgeries, the non-specialized, so to speak?
Yeah, so I guess the way medicine has gone recently, over the last maybe decade or two, is everyone kind of subspecializes into very unique roles.
Yeah.
And as a general surgeons used to do it all. They used to do the heart surgeries, General surgeons even used to do the GYN surgery, so deliveries, things like that.
Yeah,
That was
okay.
all kind of in the scope. But then everyone started specializing. The scope of general surgery today is still within those subspecialties. So it's trauma surgery. So you get into a bad accident and need an operation, general surgeon does
Okay.
it. It's bariatric surgery. It's hepatobiliary, so taking care of the liver. It's transplant surgery. We do rotations in all of the lung surgery. We do rotations in all of that.
Okay.
Now there are people who subspecialize in that, but there's still generalists who do all of those things. A basic general surgeon now is kind of doing some of the taking out your gallbladder, your appendix, fixing
okay.
hernias.
Gotcha.
If you got an abscess, draining, those kinds of things.
Sewing up if you have a
Sewing up,
perforation of colon.
yeah, exactly,
Okay,
exactly.
gotcha. Thank you for answering
Yeah,
that.
of course,
because
of course.
That's one of those burning questions that I've
Yeah.
had that I always forget when we have medical experts in to ask them.
Sure.
But you just happened to it caught me, and I said,
I
you know what,
gotcha.
we're doing it today. If you're just joining us, we're talking with Dr. Eric Maiorino. He is a plastic surgeon with Meritus Health. And right near the end of where you gave us your story, Doctor, you mentioned about helping breast cancer patients. And that is, as I have read on your biography online at Meritus Health's website, that is where your heart seemingly is now in your progression of your career. So take us through what that means to you, what it is that you see that you get to do, and the joy and the hope and the perhaps a return to normalcy for some women in that.
Sure. You know, when I first, I'll take a little step back. When I first got into plastic surgery, I thought it was all cosmetic. I thought it was, fillers and Botox and breast augmentations. And then there was a whole side of the reconstruction that I was privy to when I was in my training.
Sure.
And we did some training at MD Anderson Cancer Center in Houston. And we got to see some of the best reconstruction surgeons in the world fixing patients who had gone through this traumatic experience of breast cancer.
Yep.
And concerned about how they were going to look to the world, because our appearance is very important in our society. And feeling like yourself at the end of all of this cancer treatments and radiation and chemotherapy is super important. And there's always been a part of me that enjoyed doing that and enjoyed being able to give that part of myself back to the community and my expertise with it. So, it entails putting in implants. It entails doing what we call flap reconstruction, where we take a part of someone's tissue, mostly from the belly, and retransplant that up to the chest to create a breast mound.
Okay.
So it's some of it is very intricate and delicate work, but patients are extremely appreciative, and those are some of my favorite patients to take care of.
And I know that it's probably, I shouldn't say I know, I would assume it is difficult to bring them back to whole where they were before. But I think when they, from everything that I have read, from everything that I've seen, it shows up on documentaries and things of that nature, is just getting close to feeling like, I saw one woman who said, feeling like a woman again.
Yeah.
Just getting close is the goal.
Totally.
And I'm sure you probably take it just a little bit further. If you
try. We try to strive for perfection. Is the plastic surgeon's motto. We try to get you as beautiful as you feel, as you can feel. But the goal is to feel like you, especially in clothing.
Okay.
There's going to be some scarring. There's going to be some changes.
Yeah.
I am nowhere near God, and I cannot recreate
Sure.
what God creates.
Sure.
But the goal is to get you as close as possible.
Yeah. I wouldn't normally ask this, but this is just more my curiosity than anything. As it pertains to a mastectomy or a double mastectomy, as it were, and the reconstruction surgery that you perform, is that something that you find that insurance companies typically cover, or is that one of those things that they're kind of left on an island unto themselves?
No, thankfully, the U.S. government doesn't always do great things, but this was something that they did back in the 90s. There was a act that was passed by Congress and signed by the president saying that any woman who goes through breast mastectomy has to be offered reconstruction.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And insurance has to cover it.
That's great.
Okay. So it's really changed our cancer screening rates and our cancer survival rates, I think, because of that. I think a lot of women were worried about going through the process of mastectomy because they were afraid of looking deformed. And our government recognized that this was an issue and actually stepped in, and I'm very proud of that. So
it's amazing to think that women would forego, I've obviously never been there.
Yeah.
So I'm totally speaking just from the outside looking in, but that would forego having this potentially life-saving surgery, just because they worry that they wouldn't. That just goes to show you how deep the feelings of not feeling normal run, and how much the typical quote unquote chest as we would know it on a woman, their breasts are so tied to their femininity, and I think that's quite a testament, and you kind of just jumping in there and like, you know what, this is where I can make a difference.
Yeah, definitely. It's very ingrained in our society, but we don't just see it in women. We see it in patients who have skin cancer. They're afraid to have surgeries because they're afraid of the scarring. So we do a lot of that in our office as well, on the face, on the ears, and just trying to reconstruct things so that when you're walking down the street, if you don't want to share your story with anyone, no one really knows that you've been through it, and that's the goal.
Okay. Well, what else? So we've talked about that, but let's talk about, just kind of generally speaking, what is it that plastic surgeons do? So we hear breast reconstruction, breast augmentation, butt lifts, tummy tucks, so all these kind of things. But take us through a day for Dr. Maiorino.
Yeah, sure.
Not today, though, because we'll be right here.
Usually starts with waking up our 18-month-old son and getting him off to daycare with the nanny, and then drive into the office. On days of surgery, we have cosmetic surgeries, which we do, which covers pretty much the range. Breast augmentations, breast reductions, lifts, liposuction, tummy tucks. We do a lot of reconstruction or removal of skin after massive weight loss, and helping those patients feel good in their own tissue after doing this tremendous job of getting that weight off. But then there's a whole separate section of the reconstruction. So it's a lot of cancer care, for not just breast cancer, but skin cancer. We do a lot of trauma surgery. So if you come into the hospital after breaking a bone that happens to poke through the skin, and that skin isn't healthy, how do we get that covered? And a plastic surgeon is involved in that. So a lot of different avenues. The cosmetic stuff is lucrative from a financial standpoint, but the other stuff is where the real need is, and where patients are really appreciative.
Yeah. Now, when you say the other surgeries are lucrative, primarily because they're elective surgeries.
They're elective. Yeah, they're cash pay.
When they come in, you're not worried about passing anything through insurance or hoping to get money or whatever. These and I would say, by and large, most people who go into even a consultation with you for that kind of thing, they know that they kind of go in knowing I have the money to even have the consultation. Going forward. I would imagine. And look, they don't make TV shows about specifically plastic surgeons for nothing. Right. So there is the glamorous part to it.
There is.
There is. Helping women, men feel more beautiful, more handsome, more, in some cases, even though it may be elective, like you just said, because I lost 140 pounds, and
that's awesome.
It is great, but it does leave a lot of sagging skin.
Sure.
What I couldn't stand, though, was I wanted to have the surgery, but obviously it's an elective. Sorry, you can't, unless it's causing you some type of physical problems.
Sure.
So that's the unfortunate part. It's an elective, but I really wish in certain cases insurance would step up and help out.
And we can have a whole conversation on insurance coverage over a beer sometime.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, because I think it also, as with anything, and we've touched on it with the reconstructive surgery for breast mastectomies, is that it's all about what is your mental health, what is your mental state, which can be just as important as physical
100%.
state. And if you can no longer feel comfortable in the body that you are in, you're constantly self-conscious. You're not living to the potential that you have. That's where you can step in and really help. But
and that's what my view on plastic surgery is: just making you feel good about yourself. And unfortunately, the stigma is that I'm doing this for other people so that I can show off or whatever. But by and large, most of my patients just want to feel good in their own skin.
Oh yeah,
they're doing this for themselves, and I tell patients, if you're doing this for some other reason, you're never going to be happy, because no amount of surgery is going to fix that.
Sure, yeah, I'm glad you say that.
Yeah.
You got to be happy with yourself first, and then enhance those things if you'd like to. Have a good car before you wax it.
Exactly.
Right? Doesn't matter if it doesn't run. What good's it doing you, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Well, Doc, is there anything that you think that we didn't cover that you would have liked to? I feel it's been a great conversation.
One of the things I always like to tell patients: if you're interested or there's something about you that you're unhappy with, come and get information.
Yes.
We are here to help guide you through it. We are doctors first and foremost, and our job is to guide you through it and give you that information so that you know.
Yeah.
Because on the internet you can find a lot of different things, and you can read a lot of different things that may not necessarily pertain to you, because everyone's situation is different, and what works for someone else may not necessarily work for you, and vice versa. So we're here to help. So,
and I think too, and I was going to bring up about visiting you at the office and making an appointment, but so I'm glad you said that. I think too, a lot of folks we tend to think, and I don't know why we do this, that I'm beyond help. They can't help me.
Yeah.
Well, what makes my wife is kind of that way with certain things.
Yeah.
Not necessarily in the physical sense, but she'll say, "Well, we can't do this, and it's going to be horrible when we do this." And I always tell her, I said, "But yet, hun, people do it every day. You're not unique in that." And so I think that to your point is, if there's something that you would like to see changed, what does it hurt? To make a phone call and say, you know what, you walk in, you may be the first person that Dr. Maiorino looks at and says, "Yeah, you're right, I can't help you."
Yeah.
but I have a feeling that's not going to be the case.
But that's not that, and there's always options.
Sure.
Okay, it may not get you 100% of your goal of what you're looking for, but if he gets you 90% of the way there, then that's a great improvement.
Absolutely.
And one of the things I do have to combat with some patients is they're worried about the cost.
Sure.
There's options for financing those things, and the cost isn't as great as you think it is.
Yeah.
So come in and get that information.
Absolutely.
So you have an idea, so you can plan.
Well, Dr. Maiorino, thank you so much for being part of our
Thank you so much.
Expert.
I appreciate it.
Yes, we appreciate you. Your website, do you have your website? Any information you'd like to get out?
Yeah, so our website can be found at meritushealth.com. Our office is Meritus Cosmetic and Plastic Surgery. We are there, myself and Dr. DiMercurio, who's a legend in the area.
Yes, he is.
Come and chat with us. We're here to help you.
Very good. Dr. Eric Maiorino joining us today on Let's Talk TriState. As he said, the website, meritushealth.com. It is on your website, meritushealth.com/plastics. We'll get you exactly where you need to go with Dr. Maiorino. Thank you so much for joining us on Let's Talk TriState, all powered by the DRB Group, the right partner for your real estate development.
If you'd like to be featured on an upcoming episode of Let's Talk TriState, call 717-597-9200 or email letstalk@921thegoat.com.